Something important is moving toward you, and it has been moving for much longer than you know. Before you continue listening, take a moment and become fully present. What you are about to hear is not random. It is not a coincidence. It is not something you created inside your own mind. For a long time, you have been sensing something beneath the surface. You may have questioned it. You may have tried to explain it away. You may have told yourself that you were reading too much into certain moments, but deep down, a part of you never stopped noticing. A part of you never stopped feeling that something was there. Your intuition has been speaking to you quietly for a very long time. Not through loud announcements, not through dramatic signs, but through small feelings, subtle moments, and gentle impressions that stayed with you long after everything else faded away. Even when you tried to ignore those feelings, they remained. Even when you focused on other things, they came back. Even when logic told you to move on, something inside you continued to pay attention. Very soon, someone may speak words that confirm what you have already sensed for a long time. And when that moment arrives, you may not feel surprised, you may not feel shocked. Instead, you may feel something much quieter. You may feel relief. You may feel a sense of recognition. You may feel the calm understanding that comes when something you already knew finally becomes clear. Because the truth is that you felt it before there was proof. You felt it before there were explanations. You felt it before there were conversations. You felt it before there was anything you could point to and say, this is the reason. There was simply a knowing, a quiet feeling that stayed with you. Sometimes it appeared as a pull toward a certain person. Sometimes it appeared as a thought that entered your mind without warning. Sometimes it appeared as a feeling in your chest that you could not fully explain. You may have experienced moments when a person's name came into your thoughts without any clear reason. You may have found yourself thinking about them at unexpected times. You may have noticed that certain memories stayed alive much longer than they should have, and no matter how hard you tried to let go of those experiences, they kept coming back. That is because intuition does not work the same way logic does. Logic demands evidence. Logic wants certainty. Logic wants clear answers before it agrees to believe. Intuition works differently. It notices patterns before the conscious mind recognizes them. It senses movement before visible action appears. It gathers information quietly from countless small details that often escape conscious attention. And because of this, intuition often knows something long before the mind can explain it. For a while, you may have doubted yourself. You may have told yourself that you were imagining things. You may have convinced yourself that you were creating stories that did not exist. You may have looked for reasons to dismiss what you felt. You may have questioned your own thinking. You may have wondered whether you were simply placing too much meaning onto ordinary situations. But the feeling never completely went away. It stays somewhere beneath the surface, patient, steady, waiting, not forcing itself upon you, not demanding attention, simply waiting for the moment when the truth would have enough space to show itself. And that patience has lasted longer than you realize because what is approaching did not begin yesterday. It did not begin last week. It did not begin recently. This has been developing quietly over time. While you were focused on other parts of your life, something else was unfolding in the background, slowly, carefully, almost invisibly. Someone has been carrying thoughts they have not fully shared. Someone has been holding back words they have wanted to say. Someone has been dealing with feelings they did not know how to communicate. And this process has not been easy for them. Many people assume silence means a lack of feeling, but often the opposite is true. Sometimes people stay silent because what they feel is too important. Sometimes they stay quiet because they are afraid of changing something they value. Sometimes they remain silent because speaking the truth feels risky. The possibility of rejection can feel overwhelming. The possibility of being misunderstood can feel frightening. The possibility of losing a connection can feel unbearable. So instead of speaking openly, they wait, they watch, they think, they hesitate. And while they hesitate, time continues moving forward. This person may have spent far more time thinking about you than you realize. They may have noticed small details that others overlooked. They may have remembered conversations that seemed ordinary to you. They may have paid attention to changes in your mood, your energy, and your presence. Things that appeared unimportant to you may have carried great meaning for them. Moments you forgot may have stayed with them. Words you barely remembered saying may have remained in their thoughts for weeks, months, or even longer. And more than once they may have come close to speaking. More than once they may have felt ready. More than once the words may have almost come to the surface, but each time fear stepped in. Fear has a powerful way of interrupting honesty. It convinces people to wait for a better moment. It convinces people to stay silent a little longer. It convinces people that tomorrow will be easier. Yet tomorrow often becomes another tomorrow and another, until eventually the weight of silence becomes hard to carry. Your intuition may have picked up on this struggle. Even if nothing was said directly, even if there were no clear conversations, even if there was distance between you, something may have felt unfinished. Something may have felt unresolved. There may have been moments when the connection seemed stronger than the actual communication between you. Moments when silence carried more meaning than words. Moments when a simple interaction felt unexpectedly significant. Moments that stayed in your mind long after they ended. You may not have fully understood why, but part of you noticed. Part of you recognized that there was more beneath the surface. That feeling was not confusion. It was awareness. It was your deeper mind recognizing that something remained unspoken. And unspoken truth has a way of staying alive. It continues moving beneath the surface. It continues looking for expression. It continues searching for a path into the open, no matter how much time passes, no matter how much distance appears, no matter how many distractions enter the picture, truth has a remarkable tendency to find its way forward. That is why certain connections feel hard to forget. That is why some people continue appearing in our thoughts long after they leave a room. That is why some experiences refuse to fade completely. There is often something unfinished waiting to be understood. And perhaps that is what you have been sensing all along. Not certainty, not fantasy, not wishful thinking, but the quiet presence of something that has not yet fully shown itself. Now something is beginning to change. The energy around this situation is shifting. The movement that once felt blocked is beginning to loosen. The hesitation that once seemed permanent is becoming harder to hold on to. And the reason is simple. People can only carry unspoken truth for so long. Eventually, honesty becomes lighter than silence. Eventually, expression becomes easier than holding back. Eventually, the desire to speak becomes stronger than the fear of speaking. And when that moment arrives, everything can change with a few simple words. If this message is already stirring something inside you, take a moment to think about why. Sometimes a message reaches us because it speaks directly to something we already know, not because it gives us new information, but because it brings attention to something that has been quietly waiting within us. What you are about to understand goes far beyond a single confession. It is not only about another person's feelings, it is also about your relationship with yourself. It is about recognizing the strength of your inner awareness. It is about understanding how often you have known the truth long before it appeared in a visible form. Life is not preparing to surprise you with something completely unexpected. Instead, it is preparing to confirm something your deeper self has been sensing for a very long time. And that difference matters, because what this person is truly revealing goes deeper than simple emotion. They are admitting that what they felt never went away. They are admitting that they tried to move on while still carrying thoughts they could not fully let go of. They are admitting that distance did not erase what remained inside them. They are admitting that silence became difficult to hold on to. What appeared calm on the surface may have been much more complicated underneath. They may have tried to convince themselves that they no longer cared. They may have focused on other things. They may have kept themselves busy with work, responsibilities, or daily life. Yet the feelings remained, the connection remained, the questions remained, and eventually carrying all of that became heavier than speaking honestly. That is why this confession matters not only for them, but for you as well. Because unresolved situations affect both people. Even when nothing is being discussed, Even when life appears to be moving forward, a part of your attention remains connected to what has not been answered. A part of your energy remains tied to what has not been understood. And the moment that truth finally comes into the open, something inside you will settle. Not because the outcome is certain, not because the future is guaranteed, but because the waiting finally ends. Because what was hidden becomes visible. Because what was unspoken finally finds its voice. And you will realize, perhaps with a deep sense of calm, that you already knew. You always knew. You simply waited for the world to catch up with what you had been feeling all along. When the truth finally comes, something begins to clear. The atmosphere around the situation shifts. The uncertainty that once took up so much space starts to fade, and something valuable returns to you. Your clarity, your confidence, your trust in yourself. That may be the most important gift hidden within this entire experience. Because once everything becomes visible, you begin to understand something powerful. Your intuition was not misleading you. Your emotional awareness was not a weakness. Your sensitivity was not a flaw. You were noticing something real. You were sensing something before it had a clear shape. You were recognizing a truth before it had words attached to it. Many people spend years doubting themselves. They ignore their instincts. They dismiss their inner voice. They assume that only visible evidence can be trusted. But life often teaches a different lesson. Sometimes awareness comes first. Sometimes understanding arrives later. Sometimes the heart recognizes a reality before the mind can explain it. And that is exactly why this moment carries such importance. It confirms more than another person's feelings. It confirms your ability to trust yourself. Think about everything you have been through recently. The emotional growth, the lessons in patience, the moments of uncertainty, the times when you wanted answers but had none, the periods when you were forced to let go of control. None of those experiences were wasted. Each one was preparing you. Each one was helping you build greater strength within yourself. Each one was teaching you how to remain steady even when the future was unclear. You were learning how to stand on your own foundation. You were learning how to find peace without needing immediate answers. You were learning how to trust yourself. And because of that growth, you are now able to receive the truth from a different place. Not from desperation, not from fear, not from emotional dependence, but from stability. And that changes everything. When the confession arrives, it is important to remember one thing. Honesty does not automatically create a perfect outcome. Truth does not guarantee a perfect beginning. What honesty provides is clarity. It replaces confusion with understanding. It replaces assumptions with facts. It replaces uncertainty with awareness. And once you have awareness, you gain something extremely valuable. Choice. You become free to decide what happens next. You are no longer reacting to guesses. You are no longer trying to fill in missing pieces. You are no longer searching endlessly for signs. You are responding to reality. And that is where true strength begins. Real strength is not about controlling others. It is not about forcing outcomes. It is not about making life unfold according to a specific plan. Real strength comes from seeing clearly and acting with self-respect. It comes from remaining grounded regardless of what happens next. It comes from trusting your own worth. If you are listening to these words and feeling emotion rise within you, pay attention to that feeling. Not because it predicts the future, but because it reveals something about your inner world. Emotion often points toward areas of life that matter deeply to us. It highlights what deserves our attention. It reminds us of what our heart has been carrying. If you feel calm while hearing this message, that calm may be meaningful because genuine truth often creates peace rather than panic. When something lines up with what we already know deep inside, it can feel strangely familiar. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, simply familiar. As if a missing piece has quietly fallen into place. And if this message feels familiar to you, perhaps that is because your intuition recognizes something within it. Perhaps it speaks to a truth you have already been sensing. Perhaps it reminds you of something your heart has known for a long time. As this moment moves closer, resist the temptation to force anything. Do not rush the process. Do not chase answers out of fear. Do not create pressure where patience is still needed. Allow things to unfold naturally. Allow people to reach their own understanding. Allow honesty to arrive in its own time. Because truth that arrives naturally carries a different kind of power. It feels authentic, it feels real, it feels lasting, and when it finally appears, you may discover something remarkable. Your intuition was not only sensing a connection, it was also sensing timing. It was sensing that certain truths could only surface when both people were ready to face them. And readiness changes everything. As you continue moving forward, there is another layer to understand. The greatest shift may not happen in the relationship itself. The greatest shift may happen within you. After the truth is spoken, you may notice a sense of calm spreading through your life. Questions that once consumed your attention begin losing their grip. Thoughts that once repeated endlessly start becoming quieter. The need to constantly analyze begins to fade. This happens because clarity has a powerful effect on the human mind. Uncertainty creates tension. Questions create pressure. The unknown demands energy. When understanding finally arrives, that energy is released. You may feel lighter. You may feel more present. You may feel more connected to yourself. You may even look back at old memories and suddenly see them in a completely different way. Moments that once seemed confusing begin to make sense. Conversations that felt incomplete reveal a deeper meaning. Silences that once felt painful finally become understandable. This does not pull you backward. It frees you from carrying the past. It allows you to move forward without the weight of unanswered questions. And from that point, a new chapter begins. A chapter built on awareness rather than uncertainty. A chapter built on honesty rather than assumptions. A chapter built on choice rather than emotional longing. That kind of foundation changes everything. Because when you are standing in clarity, you no longer need constant reassurance. You no longer feel pushed to analyze every message. You no longer need to search for hidden meanings in every pause or every interaction. Your nervous system begins to relax. Your mind becomes quieter. Your heart becomes steadier. And even if there are still questions ahead, those questions no longer feel threatening. They no longer control your emotions. They no longer shake your foundation because now you are standing in something stronger. You are standing in truth. And truth has a way of creating stability that uncertainty never can. You understand something important now. You can move through uncertainty without losing yourself inside it. You no longer feel the need to control every outcome. You no longer feel responsible for forcing clarity into existence. Instead, you trust yourself. You trust your ability to handle whatever comes next. You trust your own timing. You trust your own judgment. And because of that, life begins to feel different. There is less pressure, less urgency, less fear. You no longer believe that every answer must arrive immediately. You no longer believe that every question must be resolved. Today, you understand that some things reveal themselves when the time is right. This realization does more than change one connection. It changes the way you relate to yourself. You begin to respect your intuition more deeply, not as something magical, not as something mysterious, but as a quiet form of intelligence that has been helping you all along. You begin to see how many times it guided you, how many times it tried to get your attention, how many times it offered insight before your conscious mind could fully understand what was happening. That awareness creates confidence, a different kind of confidence, not loud confidence, not the kind that seeks approval, not the kind that depends on other people agreeing with you. This confidence comes from experience. It comes from recognizing that your inner voice deserves to be heard. As that confidence grows, it begins to influence every area of your life. You become more attentive to your feelings. You listen more carefully when something feels right. You pay closer attention when something feels off. You stop dismissing your instincts simply because someone else cannot understand them. You become less dependent on outside validation. You become less afraid of making decisions. You trust yourself to navigate challenges. You trust yourself to recognize opportunities. You trust yourself to recover from mistakes. And that trust becomes one of the greatest gifts this experience leaves behind. You begin to understand that patience is not weakness. Patience is strength. Patience is the ability to remain steady while life unfolds. You begin to understand that silence does not always mean absence. Sometimes silence is part of a larger process. Sometimes important things are developing beneath the surface. Sometimes people need time before they can speak honestly. And sometimes truth needs space before it can come out fully. You also learn that rushing rarely creates genuine clarity. When people force answers before they are ready, something important is often lost. Real understanding cannot be rushed. Real growth cannot be rushed. Real truth arrives in its own time. As you continue forward, remember that you do not need to hurry toward any conclusion. You do not need to place labels on everything immediately. You do not need to make decisions before you are ready. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to listen to your own feelings. You are allowed to choose what genuinely aligns with your values. You are allowed to protect your peace. This chapter is not about proving anything. It is not about convincing anyone. It is not about winning. It is not about being right.